In this tutorial, I'm going to talk about how to come down onto the floor safely and specifically coming down onto the floor and into a Sphinx, a Cobra, or what is called an 8-limbed pose. We are going to start on all fours and we're going to warm up the spine with a gentle back bend, which is cow. And so you can plant your hands pressing through all fingers and then just let your belly drop to the floor and then look up. So you'll notice that this is a gentle back bend in specifically my low back. And then pressing away, this is our cat pose. We have our back, low back straight now. The belly is pressed into the spine and the spine is curled in the opposite direction. So let's just do a few of these to warm up before we talk about moving onto the belly from this position, or from more specifically plank pose, kneeling plank pose. So if you have shoulder issues in particular and don't really want to lower yourself down, bending your elbows, you could simply bring one forearm down, the other forearm down, and then just lower yourself down by scooting your knees back and then lowering yourself down and reaching the spine long by pulling your forearms back towards your hips and then lifting up. So this is Sphinx pose. You want to press down through the tops of your feet. Your thighs are firmly pressed into the floor. Your hips are firmly pressed into the floor. Your feet could be hip width apart, but I have also seen this pose where we take the knees a little bit wider, and that feels a little bit more gentle on my back body if my feet are wider, but you can try that out for yourself. Okay, so that is one way to get around having to lower yourself slowly to the floor using your elbows and your shoulders. So let's bring ourselves back up onto all fours. We're going to come into kneeling plank. So I walk my hands out and I want myself so that my hips are in front of my knees. I could have my toes curled under, and I want to lower myself to the floor. You want to make sure that your elbows are turned to the corner, the inside of the elbows to the corner of your mat, so that you're not hyperextending your elbows forward. And then you want to just drop your shoulders and, drop your elbows back and then lower yourself down. Now from here, in order to come to Sphinx, I would need to walk one elbow underneath my shoulders. So you notice in Sphinx, the elbows are down. We want to make sure that we keep our neck nice and long and our shoulders are away from our ears. So that is another option. Another option for Cobra is if my hands are already here underneath my shoulders, I could press up, and this would be baby Cobra. I could come into like a full Cobra with my arms extended, but that is a little bit maybe problematic for the low back. So you want to make sure your elbows are tucked in, pressing up, and then holding and breathing. Okay, let's come back down, pressing up and then back, and let's take a little break in child's pose. So child's pose is a nice pose to do after a back bend because it straightens out the low back, and the low back can have some kind of relief here with widening of the low back as you bring your hips back towards your heels. Now, the 8-limbed pose. I've had teachers tell me that this is not necessarily good for your low back because you're coming down in a position where your low back is bowed, like with your tailbone up to the sky. But we do that in cat and cow and some other poses. So let's just show how this 8-limbed pose would work. Now the 8 limbs are your toes curled under, your knees, your hands, so that's 6, and then your chest and your chin. So you're going to lower all of those things down and keep your hips up into the sky. So if I come forward and into this plank position, I can then slowly come down. My chin comes down, my butt stays high, my hips stay high, and then this is the 8-limbed pose right here. Toes, knees, hands, chin, and then I can scoop myself forward and then lengthen the spine and come up and into Cobra. And then come back and into child's pose. Let's do that one more time just to see how it feels in your body. Coming forward, kneeling plank, lowering yourself down, keeping your hips high, chin, hands, chest, knees, toes, 8-limbed staff pose, or 8-limbed pose. Coming forward, lifting up, and into Cobra. So those are some techniques for specifically getting yourself down and onto the ground so that you can do poses from your belly.